Let's make another build video. This one's gonna be a doozy. This one did not go nearly as straightforward and smooth as the rest have been. It makes sense though to me, because even though I'm trying to make everything straight and true and square, I'm really not getting everything perfect, and there's enough bowing of the wood. The entire structure has some warpage, and the more pieces you add on, sort of the out of square compounds, and at some point, you know, the box is less square than ideal. Let's talk about some of the drawbacks. So this upper port panel here, in my last video, when I was gluing the front baffle driver mount panel to the top port panel, I expressed how that this port panel was bowed in this direction, and I had to use a ratchet strap to pull it square. Once it cured and I released the clamp, this port panel, the top one, was still substantially bowed. I'm sort of just realizing now, but usually I'm just picking the best side of the wood that will be visible or exposed, and I'm leaving the less attractive side for the inside of the enclosure that's not going to be visible and not going to matter. Right now, like, if I think I can make the ugly side look sufficiently good, I think the idea is to make sure that the bow, like if this panel has a bow one way or another, I think I want the bow to be towards the center on the inside of the enclosure, because it's easy to clamp the outside edges and pull the outside in, and then the bow will automatically generate some pressure for the middle, which is a difficult location to clamp. I don't know, I just hadn't really paid that close of attention, nor had I built a box big enough that it really was that big of a deal. But I guess for future reference, I'm going to think about the direction of bow in application of actual assembly. So what did I do to straighten this panel back out? I took a small piece of wood, a little thin strip, and I laid it across the middle, and then I put some heavy-duty boards across that I had so that I could clamp it, essentially applying only pressure in the middle to draw that bow out to make the panel straight. Again, I had mocked this up and figured out these things and got everything straight before I disassembled it, glued it, and reassembled it. I had gotten it nice and straight. All the panels were tight without any issues, but when I pulled everything off, applied glue, and put everything back, I just didn't get everything square. So I kind of struggled a little bit. I ended up having to add a little clamp and ratchet strap to try and pull this panel tight against the side panel here. So I had to apply this, and I still had, like, it generated some bowing in the middle, and there was a bit of a gap. And so I kind of scrambled at the end to add another brace where I was essentially only applying clamping force from the middle where it was bowing. And then with this clamp, Well, I guess, actually, I think I'm going to add another clamp here. While we're talking, real time, I'm going to add another clamp. I'm going to go like this. And just a second. All right. We're going to go just like this. All right. The reason I'm doing that, I'll tell you in a second. All right. So as I was squeezing this in, I don't have a whole lot to grab onto. I'm already pulling this board in a lot with this ratchet strap, and then just to try and keep everything square, I had a clamp here in the middle to pull these two together, just to kind of help pull everything together. This panel is not glued. This is just to try and help me visualize and keep everything square. So in order to apply a ton of clamping force on this board without bowing everything here, what I ended up doing is putting a little clamp here that draws this panel outward relative to this. And then I've got now this clamp, this ratchet strap, pulling this panel inward. So they're kind of juxtaposed, which rather than just keep, drawing this in, trying to draw this in, there's an opposing force there that prevents this from bowing too bad, and then allows me to apply a lot of clamping force here. And then on the other side, I've got a clamp here drawing this. It's drawing all this together, but this and this are juxtaposed so that I can apply a fair amount of clamping force here. And then this clamp, of course, runs all the way to the end. So I don't think I'm distorting the enclosure by doing this, but this was a little bit of a scramble. I didn't think I would need this. When I initially mocked this up, this edge was nice and straight and true, and I figured that just 1 or 2 screws would be enough. Once I got this all clamped and set up, there was a bit of a gap here, and that's what I ended up doing to overcome that. If I had 2 people like holding and supporting all of this, it'd be a lot easier. Also, the gluing process, 2 people, you could carefully set this in place and everything would be nice. But I have a hard time just one person. It's a bit of a chore. Again, this side panel here is literally just here so that I have an idea that all of this is going on fairly square, and it's not perfect. I guess I'll show you exactly how off I ended up being. So I'm not sure how the best way to represent this is. This was supposed to be all true, but if you look, I'm as much as a 1/4 inch off. This panel for some reason protrudes out a 1/4 inch relative to the port bracing, which the port bracing is nice and flush down here, and it's just under, so it's more like 3/16 over here. So this top port panel is sort of drawn in a little bit in this area, but out here at the edge, this panel is drawn in a 1/4 inch from where I would want it, from what is considered truly square, where this top panel is closer to square. We're only about 1/8. This is about 1/8 recessed, which kind of makes sense because it sticks out here. It's more close to being true here. This is drawn in a 1/4 inch, which makes this a little bit drawn in. When I glued all of this together, I know that I ended up gluing that. Probably I should have pulled this whole section out just a little bit when I glued that, because now I can't pull this out any because all that paneling is glued in. Now, of course, this isn't glued to this, but this won't pull out because it's rigid, glued there. I told myself that this would be able to move, and it can a little bit, but once I glued this panel on to these bracing, I lost that ability. This is an oversight on my part. This is probably the biggest blemish that I'm going to deal with. So the way that wall is in this van, I don't think we'll ever notice. I don't think it'll ever matter. I don't think it's going to cause any lack of sealing or adherence of the drivers, but it is a little bit, that's about the biggest mistake that I'm just going to have to live with. Based on the shape of all of this, I was able to just sort of bring that back out. So at the top, we're back up to the exact dimensions that I was intending. This enclosure is just going to have a little bit of a wow in it. The rest of it's fairly straight. All of this lined up, which makes sense because everything is being glued up to this edge. Let's see what else is useful information here. I don't know. I kind of expected things to not go super perfect, and I guess this is about what I would expect. error in the fabrication process that I'm willing to live with. I don't think it's going to hurt anything truly long term. I'm not entirely sure how it's going to line up once I get it all sorted out. Usually the last panel is the one that fits the worst. After all of this dries, I'll be able to put the top on. So these are dropped down so that the top panel will run flush up against this, sit on top of these supports, and it'll sit on top of the front baffle and driver mount panel. And then it'll be flush with the front panel. So this will go on after the top because it'll just butt right up against. And then the back panel I won't put on until I have the rest of this braced however I decide it needs to be braced. And then the very last panel will go straight on the back, and it'll just be a straight panel. I think I'm going to end up putting the speaker terminals down on the side, on the bottom, towards the front, so that I can reach everything from the front through the driver holes. Because if I put speaker terminals here, it's going to be a nightmare trying to connect wires to them or deal with them from back here. So whether or not the amp rack gets mounted in the back or the amplifier gets mounted, there won't necessarily be a rack because I won't have that much equipment. But whether the amp gets mounted here or on the side, I'll still run the speaker wire down along the bottom and then have my access that way. Yeah, that's more of the build video, some of my flaws and mistakes. What else did I do here? So I put a clamp on top. So I glued this piece to here, and then obviously there. In order to squeeze them together, the bottom was pre-glued. I've just got a board here to squeeze these together and apply clamping force here, and of course there. There was a little bit of a bow in this port panel, and this is not glued. This is just laying in there. I don't know, it's got about 1 inch of material. I'm hoping I'll just be able to gently tap it out once all the glue cures and not hurt anything. And that's what I did to make sure that was all dimensionally accurate. What else have we got going on here? That's it. I think I discussed everything. Yeah, I think it's good, other than I showed you the most unpleasant side effect of the way that I've been building this. I don't think it's gonna hurt anything. It'll only bother me until it's fully done and I can forget about it. I don't think it's that big of a deal. Let's see, the way that I'm gonna keep my video rolling here. Open this door up. The way that this has a lip here, has a shoulder, a surface here, that enclosure is going to butt up against right here. And I'm gonna leave this lip, hopefully, and then only cut. And I'm not even sure exactly what that's gonna end up being like, but I'm only gonna cut on the inside of this lip. This is gonna remain. And then that enclosure, the sides that protrude out, will come right along here. At least that's the plan. And so on the other side, that fiberglass wall will butt up against here, and I just don't think you're hardly ever going to notice that as being an issue. But that's the reason that I've got these edges sticking out, is because these are going to be on the outside of that, and I should be able to screw, or I may not even have to attach it. I just may be able to butt this enclosure right up against it. I think that, so there's, I don't know if I'm going to open this door or not. There's some mounting locations inside the van, whether it was for straps or whatever, and I've got the hardware still for it. And so what I think I'll end up making is some kind of little L bracket that will bolt to the vehicle, and then a strap, a piece of angle iron, something it'll secure this and prevent this from moving. That's at the moment all I intend to do to make sure that this enclosure stays located. I guess once it's in, and if it moves around, I'll have to sort out a more permanent form of securement for it. I think it'll be fine. Yeah, all right, that's the video. Next video will be putting the top on it here. So appreciate any support you guys are offering me, and any views or likes. It's nice. I appreciate it.